I've had ADHD my entire life. Like, you know, it was so obvious. I don't know how no one picked it up.
The test is how willing you are to try your absolute best for the sake of Allah.
So I love my barbecue chicken wings.
Oh, bro, do people guess straight away that you're like a doctor? Like, is that something that comes up?
I realize the storm will never settle. Like, as in, what I mean is that the chaos.
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I hope you are all having a blessed day, inshallah, wherever you are listening to this, and may Allah bless you and continue to make you closer to Him every day, bi'iznillah. Inshallah, today joined with me in the studio is Hannah Omar, my co-host, and Muntasser. How are you guys?
Good.
Very good, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And Hannah, we have a very interesting episode today.
We do. We have a very interesting guest on the podcast today.
As we begin our podcast, we would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nations, the custodians of the land in which this podcast was filmed. I would also like to pay my respects to the elders, past and present. Sovereignty was never ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
We recognise the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people and the oppression endured by communities in Sudan, Congo and beyond. The legacy of colonization continues to affect generations, profoundly impacting the mental health of those who confront these challenges. May Allah ease their suffering, grant them strength in their trials, and inspire us all to act with steadfast solidarity and kindness.
We also understand the impact this conflict is creating on the mental health for people in our collective communities. If you're in crisis, please contact Lifeline on 131144 or any of the other helplines listed below.
So Muntasser, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an introduction to our audience. So Muntasser wears very many hats. He's a dad to 2 beautiful kids and a husband, mashallah. He's a doctor, currently working in ED, and he works here in Victoria, but you're originally from Oman, as I understand. He's an active member of the community. He's a student for Salaam Institute, as well as a member of the team at Podium and Wartaqi. Muntasser loves to cook. He loves being a servant of the dawah. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you have anything to add to your intro, Muntasser?
I love jiu-jitsu and I love playing with my kids.
Love that, mashallah.
I sometimes do jiu-jitsu with my kids.
What do you cook?
Bro, I don't cook all the time, bro. I don't want to give the wrong impression.
That's fine.
I just sometimes, when time, I cook a lot of things actually, bro. I love cooking.
What's your
one dish?
One dish.
Yeah.
So I love my barbecue chicken wings.
Oh, bro, there.
And then my rice and meat is infamous, bro.
Delicious.
The whole Monash University Islamic Society.
Nah.
This rice and meat with
Wow.
yogurt got the whole of the Islam community in Monash together, bro.
Mashallah.
We did like an open house, bro, and
Mashallah.
burnt meat everywhere, but it's got people together.
That's
Wait,
amazing.
so the
And
people
when I got married as well, I also cooked rice and meat and yogurt for my wife.
Oh, is
Can we
that
get a
what
thumbs
won
up,
her
Eva?
over?
Is this a
I think so. 'Cause
Eva approves? Sister Eva approves, mashallah. So there you go.
it's our anniversary today, actually.
Is it? Mashallah.
Mashallah.
yes,
Happy
indeed.
anniversary to you both.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. We like to do a little segment to break the ice, a little icebreaker. Just talk about the things we've been grateful for, what's been happening. You know, what's on the forefront of your mind that you want to say alhamdulillah about? Maybe give a shout out to someone.
Alhamdulillah for the ni'mah of Islam, first and foremost. You know, we just finished Eid al-Adha, and what a beautiful time to be Muslim. It's a good time to be Muslim anytime.
I like the disclaimer.
And you know, whoever doesn't thank Allah has not thanked the people has not thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm actually grateful for my wife on our anniversary day today for supporting me in all my endeavors.
Alhamdulillah.
That's it.
May Allah keep you guys, inshallah.
I'm grateful for my mom, of course.
May Allah keep your wife and your mom very close to your heart, inshallah. May you guys continue to grow your bond, inshallah, and head towards Allah in that journey.
Ameen.
Ameen.
All right, let's get into it.
Yeah, so we have you on the podcast here today because we know that you have a lot of experience with ADHD, and it's a topic of conversation that everyone seems to be interested in, and a lot of people seem to have experience with too. I guess just to give a little bit of a background story, would you mind telling us how your journey to your diagnosis came about? You know, what happened to lead up to it, and when were you diagnosed?
So, although I was diagnosed just before I started internship, I just thought that, you know, the exact chain of events was I realized that coming to work, and, you know, because as a final year medical student, you start to play the role of an intern more and more.
Wait, sorry, 1 second. So you were diagnosed you weren't diagnosed as a kid, you were diagnosed as an adult?
Yeah.
Amazing.
No way.
And
mashallah.
how old would you have been around?
I would have been some 27, I think now.
Okay.
And then so I would have been 24ish or 20.
Wow,
Eva,
bro.
how old was I? Sorry, I forgot. There's no one else here.
3 years ago.
No, but
So around 3 years ago.
Around 3 years ago. So
Oh, mashallah. So this is actually
that's
quite
24.
recent.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Like diagnosis is, I think a lot of people with ADHD would recognize the diagnosis is like, it doesn't change doesn't change your lived experience with ADHD. I've had ADHD my entire life. Like, you know, it was so obvious. I don't know how no one picked it up except for this random stranger that was living in our house and my dad was helping out. He said, I think you might have ADHD, son. And his name is Hamdan. Shout out to Hamdan. He's a Muslim convert from London, actually. I don't know what he was doing in our house, but yeah, my late dad was friends with him. But long story short, but no one ever made a comment. But I was literally late every single day in primary school, in middle school. I was quite impulsive and disruptive in classes, especially later on in my life, and I think one thing that when I was in the UK as a kid, the thing that protected me the most was sort of the environment that I was in, right? I recall in primary school, for example, although I came late, I remember my lovely teacher would always say to me, better late than never, and really like...
That's so sweet.
Yeah, it really uplifted me, you know, it really like made me feel not like an outsider. And I recall I went from being this kid who was kind of like, didn't really have a positive relationship with school because of my experience earlier in Oman when I was in sort of grade 3. I was quite, you know, disruptive and naughty and had a rebellious kind of look to myself, to a completely kind of transformed kid who from grade 4 to grade 6, by grade 6 I sort of done a bit of acting, so they found a way to kind of release my energy, you know, in that way and be theatrical, you know, dramatic through that. In addition, I was playing rugby 6 times a week now because I just discovered this Arab kid.
You still got the physique, man.
Thank you. This random Arab kid discovers rugby and he's so aggressive on the field, and I just like, you know, flourished, and I had the right support, the right mentorship, and I found myself being, you know, captain of the you know, middle school team, and I was just so, you know, busy outside of the classroom that mainly in class I was mostly sort of, you know, inattentive. I never learned anything in class, but outside of class, when I was in the right environment, I could learn, and I thought that was the norm, right? I thought that being late was also like the norm. I thought that also wanting to be, you know what I'm trying to say? So it was always there. Going back to Oman then now, so in sort of grade 9, grade 10, I stopped all of my rugby, and all of a sudden the classroom became my main outlet. That's when my disruptive nature and impulsivity really, really erupted. That's when now for the first time things are getting flagged. So I get suspended 9 times in the course of my time in this high school. I eventually got expelled from that school.
Wow.
And remember the difference here, right, is that I remember in that school that I was in, I don't blame them, right, but I was very quickly demonized. I wasn't made to feel that, hey, look.
And you felt like you fit into that sort of characterization that they, you know, you were the troubling kid. You're the kid that, I mean, aside from the fact that they took away your outlets, or your outlets were not available to you, you were kind of given that character or that persona, and you just played that character.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly right. And you know, it was the classes in which the things it's interesting, right? Is the things that stick with me today are all the positive affirmations that you know, that have shaped me into, alhamdulillah, like taking a different trajectory after I got kicked out of the school, and I went to a military boarding school because I wanted to get away from it all. Right?
Wow. You went to a military boarding school.
Yeah, that was my choice. It's interesting. It's a survival instinct that I had, is that I knew that whenever I needed to focus, I needed to move away from everything and everyone. Obviously, that's not sustainable for exactly.
Yeah.
So I had to do that in medical school as well. So when I went to QLA, anyways, a boarding school in Qatar, it's like a military cadet school, no distractions, the middle of a desert, right?
Wow.
Just an all boys school, and to make Allah made things even easier for me that there was only 3 students in my classroom who were doing IB.
Wow.
Oh,
And
wow.
in that very, very unique circumstances, I went from being expelled to thriving and actually scoring the top in
Mashallah.
the school and in the in my, like, this was very unique. Like,
No, absolutely.
You see what I'm trying to say?
No,
Yeah?
100%. I came actually across a study that speaks about this very thing, about how people with ADHD tend to go towards the all or nothing kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Where we either, like, you know what I mean, not organized with that time at all, no organization at all, nothing like that, or that kind of military, very precision, like 11:01 is a disaster. I'm already incredibly late. And I feel like normally the world doesn't kind of work like that.
exactly.
There's like varying degrees of how much of a problem late is, or how important something is, and what we really thrive in that military, like all or nothing, like kind of environment. And I can see why that really helped you, especially as well being in the middle of the desert, all boys school, 3 people in class. You can really sort of focus and in completely get involved in learning.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
You kind of talked about how, in Oman it was like this, and then when you came to the UK, this is how you acted. Throughout all of this, when you found yourself, acting out of line or getting in trouble more, or all of these things, did you ever have that idea that there might be something else going on, or was it just like, this is my personality, this is kind of how I am?
Never until I actually studied about ADHD in 4th year, like medicine.
Yeah.
That I started to think, sounds familiar. And then my brother got the diagnosis of ADHD. And there's a 50% heritability. I swear I'm a doctor, guys. I just
that one.
So it was like, maybe. Yeah. But a lot of people with ADHD, I shouldn't make generalizations, but I know that this was for me the case, and I read this online, is that we really resist the diagnosis.
Yeah, for real.
Really like. So I told myself, okay, even if it is ADHD, why should I go and get diagnosed?
Yeah.
What's the point? Like, what are they gonna do for me? Oh yeah, okay, you have ADHD. You can call it whatever you want. Like, it's at the end of the day, it was my struggle, and this is how I've adapted and survived all my life. And again, so first 3 years of medical school was a bit rocky. In 4th year, I again made hijrah, or I had to get away from everyone, and I scored the highest out of all the years that I've ever scored, right? And so that was my survival mechanism, but it's not sustainable.
No,
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So 5th year, and I realized that's when it kind of hit a breaking point where I was just so sick and tired of being late. The type of mistakes I was making, not the wrong address, not that I came late. I got the day wrong, so I'll be going to a placement, and it's not. I don't even have a placement in that place that day.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it would get so frustrating, because as soon as your executive function is put under stress, right? Then you realize the gap. So whatever adaptive response you have, as soon as you just tip that over, right? Everything comes to light, and I think that happens to a lot of people. So in light of that 5th year, so I decided, I spoke with my wife, said, okay, we'll go and see a psychiatrist, and saw a GP, saw a psychiatrist, and like within, it was like textbook ADHD, So sorry, I actually died. What was the question?
I think you answered the question
you
beautifully.
answered the question. It was basically exactly what you said about whether you knew.
Oh yeah. It was exactly. It was only
so
in the
you would also it was kind of like someone pointing it out to you and reading about it, and then identifying that, hey, this kind of sounds like me. But then even then, it was that push. You had to have that push from someone else to go out and get the diagnosis.
Yeah.
So after receiving the diagnosis, do you feel like there has been a change, like pre and post?
No.
Really?
I don't think it made a difference. Maybe the reason for that is, I think pre and post diagnosis, no difference. But the medication, eventually, I started to appreciate the value of medication in treating ADHD. And I kind of humbled myself to the, you think you kind of got this figured out, but for the year, so I got the diagnosis and I went to Brisbane. Allah put me alone in Brisbane for a year. So it was a very interesting experience there, where I really began to appreciate myself more, like understand myself more in the context of ADHD, in the context of work, medication, and the, and eventually it took a long time actually before I truly accepted the fact that I have ADHD and that I probably need lifelong medication. It took me that real year of wrestling with it.
What was it that made it so difficult to come to terms with?
One big thing was a constant guilt for taking stimulant medication. I felt like this is haram, right? It was a weight very, very heavy on my conscience. I was like, this is not right. It's not right Islamically, and the problem is that I was reading online and trying to arrive at a conclusion on something for myself, which is so unhealthy and so wrong. So in the end, I think it was my wife actually who prompted me to just let go and go seek knowledge from the people who know to arrive at a conclusion. And I did that, and alhamdulillah, may Allah bless the Shaykh, he gave me a very clear answer, and suddenly it just made logical sense. If it's you follow the harm and benefit principle, as long as it's causing more. I'm like, this is my question. Shaykh, it's helping me get to work better on time. I get to pray with more focus. I find myself more consistent with my habits. But I don't know, Sheikh. Should I still keep taking the medication? I'm not sure. It looks a bit.
It seems almost obvious now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Really had to wrestle with it, and I'm still sensitive about it, especially if people I love would make even a small comment on it. That I'd go through phases of like, nah, I don't need this medication anymore. Take it. So that was
And just to clarify, the Sheikh said, like, of course.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
For you to take.
Exactly. And then he put a clause. He put a clause that if there is an alternative treatment option out there, then do take that. And so you take it now because this is the best what we have that we know. And if there's an alternative treatment out there that works, take that. So it's like. So I stuck onto that bit, So this is the story. I stuck on the bit. It's like atomoxetine. I'm gonna take a non-stimulant, and it worked. It was actually really good, but also caused me a hypomanic episode, right? So
it did. So
exactly. So like I kind of it wasn't just like take the medication. Then the next day I'm just forget about it. There was a lot of this wrestling and battling with both my conscious, some of it's legitimate, some of it's illegitimate, then this battling the side effects of the medication. And when you take this medication, you have to take it responsibly. Like you need to sleep, you need to drink water, you need to make sure you're eating. And if you don't, you can really put yourself in difficult situations. And you have to have a good awareness of like yourself. So the medication almost forced me to be more conscious about how I take care of myself.
You have to start, I think, tracking these things down, because that medication is sort of responsibility. I think you also really well touched on the whole journey of it's not like you go to a psychiatrist, you take a tablet, and then your ADHD is fixed. So that's
for some people it is. I've heard of some people they tell me no, I just needed the medication.
It's
actually
rare, man.
It was just the right thing to get everything right in order. But for me, it was
there's a lot of lifestyle
of
factors that have to go into it so that you can manage your medication, get to the right dosage, find the right psychiatrist. It's really, really been a journey. But how do you feel like now with all of that? Alhamdulillah, I see you very involved in the community, mashallah. You've made it as a doctor, alhamdulillah, married, dad. For the average person, I think you have surpassed what normally people would put on their plate, and mashallah, ace.
Barakallahu feekum. I think
how do you do that, man?
This is a fadl min Allah. This is honestly that, and I really mean it. Literally that the transition between being expelled and then suddenly doing well in school, and that there was a small gap there, and there was a Ramadan in there, and as soon as I tied my heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened the doors of what I perceive as khair. Maybe it's, as Umar Khattab said, like these things of, anyways, a long story, but the main thing is that first of all, there's a direct correlation between any of my successes and the state that I am in with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one thing, because in a way that like I've always made a commitment that, ya Allah, what I don't want to share this commitment, but so that there's a very strong like link there. That's one side of things. I think though, like while it seems on the outside that's mashallah, I'm involved in the community and this and that, and alhamdulillah, that Dr. I'm grateful for all these things. The reality is that the storm, like I describe ADHD sometimes, it's kind of like being in this storm, like a tornado, and you're in a train, and you're blindfolded, and so you're the driver of this train that's in this storm, and it's going like full on, and maybe it might be a beautiful sunset on the outside, right? I remember always spoke to my psychiatrist. I'm like, when does a storm ever settle, right? And I realized the storm will never settle. Like, as in, what I mean is that the chaos, that the sense of chaos around your life, and my life is pretty chaotic. If I just go over the last 48 hours, right, it seems like it's constantly chaotic, and it feels like it's never ever going to end. You learn to actually be at peace with it, and accept that you learn to be at peace with it, and learn to kind of prioritize what needs to be, because the reason why things feel so chaotic is because there's so many things in your periphery, and your mind doesn't filter out things automatically like other people would just filter things out. So everything seems important and urgent, needs to be done now, and so everything feels like so full on, and so that it causes you that overwhelm, right? And I thought that at some point in time we'll get better, but obviously now with 2 kids, having 2 kids is even if you don't have ADHD, it's like having ADHD on steroids. So right, like so that's just like, it's like, oh my god, I'm never gonna get that sense of I feel organized, and I feel like. But sorry, last point I just wanted to make, and that I actually forgot the point that I was going to make now. What was the point that I was going to make? Something's really important point.
I think it ties into why you feel that need to make hijrah, man, like, and just be isolated.
Yeah,
I honestly, I can resonate with that, like the feeling of, even if nothing's going on, that sense of there's a storm, there's so much going on, everything's important. I can have the most calm day, and I can genuinely relate to that, and that's why I feel like isolating yourself is the quickest and easiest way to be like, okay, I definitely have nothing to do now. Okay, I can take a minute to rest, and focus on the one thing that I really want to focus on.
And technically, you didn't take yourself out of the storm, right? What you've done just now is you found peace in the storm.
You're in the eye of the tornado.
Yeah.
I think.
Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I completely get what you're trying to say.
And I think that this is for me now. It's beginning to. I'm beginning to come and actually getting married, and to see my wife work through the storm and do the thing of she very effectively prioritizing despite the chaos. I'm like, what do you mean? How can you be doing, this and this with all this noise in the background?
Mashallah.
I think that's a new goal for me, kind of with my ADHD, is that to accept the fact that life will always be chaotic and distractions will always be there. I'll never be able to eliminate them, but I need to learn to muster up the willpower and have the right support structures to do what's most important to do right now.
Absolutely.
And be at peace and just let go. Anyways.
No, it's really interesting actually that you touched on how observing your wife and managing things with your wife has sort of helped you see things from a different light. You've always seen different tasks and different duties from only the ADHD lens, but you've seen how your wife deals with it as well, and that's kind of been like, okay, well, that's interesting. But I think it really ties into the concept of the family unit and how important that is of a concept we have in our deen. We live in a very individualistic society now. Everyone's me, myself, and I, me, my goals, me, myself, like just how they want to live their life independent. But you look at a Islamic community, Islamic family, we work as one cohesive unit. And I was thinking about this actually, like when you do have ADHD or you do have mental illness or there's something you struggle with, when you're on your own, like the negatives of that are so much more pronounced. You know, you will be late to appointments, you know, all the things that we have discussed. But when you are with a partner or you are with a family, you know, that family carries you through your weaknesses. They're there for you in that moment. You know, let's say a child with ADHD or a teenager with ADHD, you know, he has a tendency to be impulsive. You know, the mother or the father are keeping him in line, make sure that he's on the deen. So these are all really important points, and that's why, alhamdulillah, you know, you mentioned you were grateful for the ni'mah of Islam, I believe you said. It's very, very true, man. Alhamdulillah, we are so blessed. You know, of course, Islam is not just about what it does for us in this worldly life, but we are very, very blessed that our deen really, really, really attends to these kind of things. It really, really attends to our weaknesses and provides a framework and support structure for us through these things.
Absolutely. And but I think 100%, like with what you guys both are saying, I think it really resonates well. And
I agree with you, by the way, bro.
Yeah.
Just going back to what you said, Muntasser, about like even finding medication hard to swallow, like, you know, the fact that you had to take it and the fact that you felt like it was haram. I feel like that's a experience of a lot of individuals who have mental health issues in this day and age. A lot of Muslims with these with mental health problems kind of feel as though that they're doing something wrong, they're being sinful, that they've transgressed in some kind of way. And I think this is especially pertinent to talk about because when we talk about our Islamic obligations or how Islam plays a role in our life and how it interacts with, you know, your diagnosis today, how have you kind of found solace and found peace with, you know, that the journey or the interaction between them?
Yeah, and most of the medications. I'll talk about, you're talking about the medication, from my relationship with the ADHD.
So
Islam and ADHD.
Okay, fair enough. But I actually want to make one comment on the medication because maybe it might be helpful for viewers. The first thing I would say is that maybe it's not a popular opinion amongst the psychologists, mental health, be happy type of people. With all due respect.
I'm scared.
No, what define?
No, it's not going to be offensive, I promise. But I think that having a sense of a little bit of guilt and restlessness about doing something that has uncertainty is, inshallah, a positive thing, and inshallah it's a sign of your iman. And that, and it's a very protective factor because you're always going to be, you have to, because it's just the way it is in the medical literature, that a lot of the times we don't have the full picture, we don't have the long-term data. A lot of times we don't really know why it works. And so there's always a bit of uncertainty, you know, and then and at the end of the day, it's a psychoactive substance, right? You know, and it's going to be affecting your mind, which is the gateway into your soul. You know, it influences. You know what I'm trying to say. So it's good to be a little bit uncertain, but at the same time, you have to be practical, and this is what the beauty of Islam kind of lays out to you is. With the available resource that we have, the knowledge that we have, and the assessment of your situation, if your current function is detrimental to yourself, right, and causing you more harm than whatever perceived harm of that medication is, then put your feelings aside and seek get a psychiatric opinion, verify from a scholar. But you should probably be taking that medication. I think that it's a two-way thing. That guilt in a way is positive, but when it becomes negative is when you, out of nobility, act upon that guilt with no rationality.
With no regard for common sense.
And I've seen some people just so like they really need medication, you know, and it's like, sister, brother, like how long are you gonna stay like this, man? You know, And anyways, I believe you asked a question about kind of Islam and ADHD and reconciling, and so again, this is not medical advice. This is purely a reflection, right?
On your experience.
And I'm just being, I have to, I'm just gonna be, direct and open. Like, I feel like with every mental health condition, including ADHD, just as we don't have the full picture from a biopsychosocial model, Western medicine kind of thing, I feel like there's also a dimension of every mental health illness that is the spiritual dimension of that. It's sort of the equivalent of that. There is a component of it whereby that can be defined in terms of spiritual diseases, and there's the shaitan, plays a role in one way or another. You can even look at it as if ADHD is a mental illness, i.e. a disease of the almost like the nafs, right? In a way, right? Then therefore, the shaitan could technically take advantage of that and maybe use more distractions against you, for example, right? So I reasoned that with it that I found, first of all, that being Islamically focused, right? So khushu', like the most important defining quality of Islam that has the biggest impact in my ADHD is the quality of khushu', right? Which is essentially humble concentration with a sense of an awe and fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in prayer. So like I remember there's a few times in my life where I've reached that state, right? Where I am fully focused in that prayer, and the impact of how that, I don't want to go as far as say it's completely cure my ADHD, but it's
powerful,
extremely powerful, and it goes to the point like the spiritual dimension of my ADHD experience it reaches the extent that reading Quran influences even like the effect of the medicine on me. Like,
wow,
it's like I can't explain. I don't know what it is, but there is a very strong spiritual component to this that I haven't quite fully understood, but I know it's there. Like I it's an experiential thing. I can't even describe it. Making wudu, like I remember before I was diagnosed with ADHD, I could not understand why I was getting like so many thoughts in prayer. I couldn't concentrate in prayer. That like the carpet on the floor, the design would be so distracting, like, and in order for me to concentrate, I have to eliminate, to really, really get into concentrate, I would have to eliminate so many noise and sounds. You see me sometimes, even when I pray, just noise there so much, I have to like switch off all the lights and like because you want to start actually focusing. You don't have time to do that during the day, but something, I used to not understand why, and I spoke to my friends, like, look, you just got to be read Surah An-Nas a lot of it, yeah, and that helped a lot, right? And so in the same sense that Islam, the component of dhikr and the way that Islam gets you into that state of flow, that having that right mindset, I feel like that's like it's like the foundational treatment for ADHD.
I think that's also quite a difficult thing to do when you have ADHD as well, right? Like achieve that state of khushu', and even for people that don't have ADHD, that can still be quite a struggle. So the fact that you were able to manage that and feel like that, really helped you, that's subhanAllah amazing. And what would you attribute to yourself achieving this state of khushu'? Is in the medication? Is it some strategies that you've used?
So that's actually you touched on a very deep and interesting topic, right? So ADHD medication is a physical substance. It's technically like, you can argue it's morally neutral. Like if you take the medication, you're not going to automatically mean you're going to be a better practicing Muslim, right? So while the ADHD medication plays a role in helping the function of the mind to attune to your prayer, you still need to have the intention to do that, and the tawfiq from Allah to actually achieve that.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm trying to say? And so even prior to starting the medication, the strategy that I would use would be, I would have to invest a lot of energy actually to attain that state of khushu'. A lot of energy. I didn't know why. I thought it was just like normal, damn shaitan and this. But yeah, as I described earlier. But I think I'm gonna stop talking for a second.
No, that's all right.
I think I lost track of
what
we're talking about.
That's all right.
Did I answer the question?
You 100% did.
No, I didn't. What was the question?
We've got side questions to come from that. We definitely got side questions to come from that.
No, but did I answer the question? I don't. Sorry. Again,
that's okay. That's all right.
Well, so you can say the question again. I probably won't.
No, it was a very specific question. I think you have answered it.
No, you have answered.
Tell me what was the question? Actually, I need to know what was the question now.
The question, I don't remember. I think, how do you achieve that state of khushu'?
Yeah. like strategies, etc.
Meditation.
But I'll tell you what.
Elimination of all distractions around you. Using a white cloth. I used to do that. I used a white cloth.
Okay, great.
Taking
A white cloth across like the floor.
No, as in a white cloth as my sajada, because I don't want any distractions.
Patterns and stuff.
Yeah, even things in my periphery, I have to take away all toys.
Yeah.
I have to take away all things. Baby crying, kid crying. With all due respect, stop crying. I can't. Even the fan.
Yeah.
The vent, like to that extent, I had to switch that off.
Yeah.
The lighting would have to be not too dark and not too, it's a bit like almost like OCD ritualistic, but it was literally the elimination of distraction, so that I can actually focus on what I'm saying, because there's already enough. The chatterbox, there's something we call the chatterbox, like the ADHD mind. It's always like, I thought everyone had that, like,
Yeah. No.
So silencing that, and then tremendous practice to actually achieve it.
Alhamdulillah.
I noticed like cutting myself off YouTube, Facebook, all these things,
Like
that
not being overstimulated kind of thing.
yeah,
Beforehand.
Yeah.
But it's really fascinating that we touched upon, I think earlier in the episode, so I might be going on a bit of a tangent. We touched upon like the shaitan and how he can come through with the whole ADHD and prayer thing. I feel like there's something really beautiful about prayer and religious acts where yes, there are of course going to be aspects of it that are difficult for you because of your mental health condition, but I've started to notice and read and connect with people where they've found this thing, like it's our own spiritual focus where Allah, He is capable of everything, subhanAllah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with the right intention and with the right things in place, it's not the thing that you put in place, that's just a sabab for Allah to make it easier for you to reach that sort of focus. And the shaitan can come in instances like that, where he can be like, look, you've got ADHD, you've got this condition, you've got that, you've got depression. Allah gave you that. It's not your fault that you have this. It's okay. Don't pray today. It's okay. Don't focus today on your prayer. It's okay. Like he makes these excuses for you. When in reality, okay, to a certain extent, some of these excuses are better, but they're excuses to push harder. They're excuses to try again. So at the end of the day, praying and all the things that Allah sets for us, of course, they're good for our soul, etc., but they're also a test for us. And so in that test, you simply trying, you simply doing your best with the most purest of intentions, is the end result that you need to measure. I found, at least. Perhaps you might lose focus. That's a different story. That's maybe something you couldn't control. But what you can control is your intention, what you went in with. Yeah. And you will be judged on that. The test is your intention. Your test is how willing you are to try your absolute best for the sake of Allah.
Yeah. And there's always, like, inshallah, there'll always be a reward for our struggle, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
It's interesting, actually, about, the analogy you gave with the shaitan, and making
that
excuses.
damn shaitan.
Yeah, that damn shaitan. I was listening to you. I was like, actually, you know what? For prayer and for religious stuff, that actually never occurred like that. Being late to prayer and this and that. Because I looked at that, I was like, oh, this is like, yes, maybe I do have maybe some leeway, maybe, but you can't bank on that. Just, no, but I had ADHD. You can't bank on that, right? But it's interesting. I was like, nah, that doesn't happen. Then I realized the other way, though, in which the shaitan plays that same card on me, is not for the areas in which I hold in really high regard and or venerate. Is that the right, how you say that word? Like when you hold something in, it's like, oh, something really, really important. And you want to be protective of it, like religion, like something sacred, for example, right?
Yeah.
But I use that excuse for things that are still a amana from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but things like arriving to, arriving late to work, or speeding too much, or I don't know, like what other excuses I have for things that my nafs actually, I probably can do a lot more effort to make sure that I sort out that problem. That's when I say throw in, no, yeah, but you have ADHD, right? It's an interesting thing.
That's true. I think part of the journey as well, and self-reflecting as well, is a really important part of our deen. The scholars have spoken about it in great lengths, but there's a certain level of self-reflecting I think that we do. I feel like we do more than others, and inshallah we can arrive at a point where we balance, okay, you know what, man, I got to cut myself some slack here. I have ADHD. This is going to be difficult for me. And no, I stuffed up here, man. I should have been on time. I had everything in place. And through strategies, of course, and with the right intention, Allah makes everything easy for us. But yeah, that's interesting. I relate to both of them, unfortunately. You know, but inshallah, it can become easier for me.
You're sorry. I know this is the last distraction.
No, it is. It's your podcast, man.
I just every
No,
whenever, okay, this is another tangent from the tangent that I was about to go on. Is that
we're gonna draw a parabola by the end of this? Circle the way back.
It's interesting, like this thing that just happened, right? About it's another thing about, like, I don't know if you can resonate, is that being aware of kind of your ADHD symptoms and your ADHD diagnosis, and in fact being too aware of them and being too conscious about the things that can irritate people, especially being ADHD, the pathological people pleaser type of person, is that I'm always conscious about talking too much and going like off topic, and but it doesn't prevent it from happening. Yeah, but rather it
like you're conscious about it. You make yourself feel bad about it, but you're still doing it.
Yeah, but not like no. It's just like I'm conscious about it for like a brief time, and then I'll get distracted. Obviously, then you go on a tangent, and then you backtrack. Say, oh, sorry, did. So in some ways, sometimes like it's like one of my mentors, in medicine, to talk about being self-aware and things like. But it's not. But don't become hyper-aware, right? Like, don't become hyper-aware of your progress as medicines and intern, etc. Be aware, but because then it starts to impact your performance in and of itself. And subhanAllah, and that's like the balance.
I just wanted to shift the topic a little bit, and we were actually having a conversation right before filming about this, but it was about how people with who have ADHD often feel misunderstood, and perceptions from the community can feel either, like a weight on their shoulders or can get you down. Is this an experience that you've had, and do you have a feeling of being misunderstood by a lot of people?
Do people guess straight away? Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's okay.
Do people guess straight away that you're like a doctor? Like, is that something that comes up?
No, actually. So that's the thing. That's an interesting point you brought up. And this used to get me down, but then I realized maybe that the perceived personality of a doctor is lame. That's why. Maybe boring, whatever, and not friendly and outgoing. So I was like, see, I flipped around.
That's a good perspective shift.
But it used to really weigh heavily on me. Is that I remember I found this out sort of by accident. Is that I just noticed this pattern whenever I say that I'm a doctor. Like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. We're like, why? Actually, hide it. And then I started to test people. Like, okay, guess what's my career? And they'll guess, this DJ, my dancer, or no, I'm just kidding. I'm making that up. But like they'll guess like a bunch of everything, and the last will come just being a doctor. So, and I was like, oh, every doctor, no matter how good they are, gets an element of imposter syndrome, right? ADHD is like your imposter syndrome is there all the time, like with so many things, and so that just like really impacted my performance. But being misunderstood, the thing that hurts the most about being misunderstood with ADHD, you don't care if a stranger misunderstands you, right? But when you have like a friend, for example, right, and you're already reluctant, you don't want to. I'm not the type who like tells everyone that I have ADHD. I was a lot more kind of reserved about for the pure reason that I don't want to deal with the question of, oh yeah, bro, but does ADHD even exist, bro?
Yeah.
Does it? I don't know. I think also I have a bit of ADHD.
Yeah,
it's like you need to afford some respect to this area of knowledge that people have been studying for decades, and nothing that you kind of
people's experience.
Exactly. They've just figured it out. In 10 seconds, and because it almost invalidates kind of your struggle and makes you instantaneously regret like opening up to that person. And it happens to it's an innocent mistake. They don't mean anything bad, but it's kind of like bro, I'm telling you something here, you know,
Yeah.
or sister, I'm
I've
telling you something here.
I've opened myself up here. I've made myself vulnerable,
Yeah.
and you just disregarded it, and it made me feel worse. Like,
Or like, oh, did you just diagnose yourself? Or,
yeah.
or like,
I mean, it's similar to someone telling you like of a difficult experience they've gone through, and then you're like, bro, are you sure that really happened? It's like, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Or
not very
them being
nice.
like, oh yeah, I went through the same thing and I like got out of it fine, you know.
Yeah.
It minimizes the
like,
It may
oh, no,
definitely-
I don't, like, I don't think you have ADHD. Like, I don't know. I don't really like.
Okay, buddy.
yeah.
Like, you know what I mean. It's a bit that's kind of like a bit frustrating. It happens. Unfortunately, it happens
A lot. It does
almost
happen a lot.
exclusively with men. Only.
Nah.
Almost exclusively. I've never told like sister, cousin, a female person that they will have at least, even if they don't understand ADHD, they'll be like a bit empathetic, you know.
Yeah.
But exclusively, especially my close
The
friends,
boys, yeah.
the boys.
Yeah.
You know, I honestly now I feel like my friends have come to the point where like they're convinced. Like it just randomly, like I'll tell a guy like 6 months later, he'll be like, nah, bro, I see it. I'm like, okay, thank you.
Thank you for
Yeah,
validating.
Yeah, it's like, all right, bro, I get it.
Oh,
Like,
finally, you see, now I actually have
Actually,
ADHD. Yeah.
sometimes I cook it a little bit and I start playing games on them. Like if I'm driving, whatever, like I'll play into the ADHD thing too much. Like they'll start annoying me and they'll like keep changing songs. You know, I just do all the symptoms at once and like, no, bro, you really gotta, you know, I just play that act a little bit.
And then
I think it's funny. It's
make
for my
them
own.
understand,
Yeah, it's for my own.
No,
like
I don't have ADHD. This is
I
my
don't-
normal
this is my
behavior.
normal- I like take the wrong exit. You think I don't have ADHD? Let me show you, man.
Guys, going back to feeling misunderstood.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Should I keep going about that one? That one?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
No,
like,
should I stop talking
what do
about
people like? All right, let's bounce off that. What are some other things that people see in you and they're like, yo, this? They take it the wrong way. Like you mean something. Maybe you're like slightly nicer, particular person, or you're trying to say something, and you know some of the ADHD things that we do, maybe, and people will be like, I'm
Misinterpret.
offended, or you know, you're trying to offend me, or you don't respect me, or
There's something that really. There's
So-
a few events that.
give us a quick story, maybe.
How much time do you have left?
Don't worry.
I told you we need the signs like 1 minute to go. Or so basically, I was sorry.
Hit it,
I'll keep
bro.
going.
15 minutes.
So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So no, I should want to know the time. I get nervous. So and I start babbling even more. So basically, where was I going with that? Yeah,
People.
there was a few incidences.
Yeah.
The few incidences, and the time that it happens is very, very interesting. It's when my ADHD medications, like my similar, wears off. I don't know. I get this rush of hyperactivity.
Bro, it's the hangover effect. I don't know if you've heard of
No,
it.
I don't get the dip. That's
Oh,
the
you
thing.
don't?
I don't get. I know that there's a. When I was taking, purely the long acting, there's more of that dip, right? But now with the short acting, and especially if I've got an adjunct kind of medication, the dip is not really the thing that happens to me. I get this rush of hyperactivity and very talkative and a bit of a like loose cannon type of thing, and it can be a bit annoying sometimes, and especially if I haven't slept, then it's like compounded, right? And it's often the very, very conscientious type people, who would kind of pick up on the sudden change, and especially people who don't know me that well, and they see me in focused mode. I work in the sun, my medication's very off, and I've start talking. So it's a cycle. It's like medication runs off, you start talking, so you forget to take your medication, and then you just like and then next minute you're like, full blown like and then people are like, oh, I never seen the side of you. And then at times like they even look at it with scrutiny almost, and then you become really self-conscious about your behavior all of a sudden.
Absolutely, they relate it to themselves as well. If you're around people that are close to you and maybe they've got an anxious personality type and they attribute your behaviors to their actions, it can be quite stressful for you because you're like, okay, everything I do now will be a reflection of everything they have done. And they'll take that as a reflection of our relationship. Whereas like me, bro, I'm just going through the craziest mood swing. I've forgotten about the essay that's due in 3 hours, and now I'm like just vibing, and it's like it's a completely. And then they think about like a comment they said or whatever. So
and I've had other experiences whereby like that hyperactivity side of things, like crazy mode. I don't know what you want to call it. First, by the way, with my kids, it's the best. It gets a bit too much. It gets a bit too much with my 3-year-old. For my 3-year-old daughter now, because she's becoming more organized and more
she values that,
conscientious. Yeah, it's interesting. She tells me that, Baba, put your shoes away. Baba, okay, that's enough now. Okay, Baba, can you stop laughing like that too much? But when she was younger, she'd be like crazy. But now I got another son, 8 months old, and we always vibe, always like, So that's great for that, right?
Yeah.
But for some other people who don't understand you, don't know you, like it can be very hurtful when they can't get. Like I remember this one time I was with my, I don't want to say who, but then when they got out the car, like they started complaining about, you know, me the way I am, to the point that another third party, my family came and had to talk to me about how I've upset that person. I didn't do anything offensive. I was just like, you know, when you're just like, and it's just you feel hurt because it's like, okay, that's the true me.
Just,
you know,
yeah.
like
I'm
that's
just trying my best here.
and that's who I am without any filters.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm trying to say? And
Yeah.
that's what
That
I
perception,
respect my wife so deeply, is that she accepts me in my crazy mode, fully, and welcomes me on board, you know, and so it's I think that's, you need to find that person, be around those people in your life who accept you for who you are.
So we've had quite a fruitful conversation so far, and unfortunately our time is drawing to an end.
Story of my life.
I guess to conclude,
I used to not be able to joke about my ADHD because I was so hurt. Remember last year,
Yeah.
your mom really inspired me, bro. Like
Really?
she really
She's
bro,
incredible
she came
human
to
being.
me.
Shout out to you, mama.
Really, my Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her. She came to me
Ameen,
and we had a very different personality, very different like relationship with our ADHD. You seemed a lot more secure. And I think because you had your diagnosed a lot earlier, right?
Yeah.
And you had this maturity about you, about your ADHD.
I put it on, bro. I put it on. I can't lie.
No, but you putting it on is a part of managing it. Actually, that's a good thing.
Alhamdulillah.
While on the other hand, I was like very negative, and now it's that really, you know, your mom told me that she said something along the lines of, you got to learn to accept yourself. You know, that's pretty much one of the only things, like she said to me. She said, you got to learn to accept yourself. As if she could see that I was kind of battling this identity, you know.
Yeah.
It stuck with me, it resonated with me for years, and just as I absorbed it more and more. And anyway, sorry.
No, that's
No, that's
actually great.
so
I think,
beautiful,
you know,
honestly.
that actually, mothers always know. You know,
I love you,
know.
mama. Shout out to mama.
yeah, they
Number
always
one.
know what's
May
going
Allah
on.
bless
They're
our
so
moms.
clued on,
Ameen,
mashallah,
ameen,
mashallah.
ameen.
I wanted just to highlight, see that tangent led to something good,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And this is something about having ADHD that sometimes we fail to appreciate. That we think that a lot of people with ADHD would feel like their whole life was just from accident to accident. You know, they stumble upon
Yeah.
situations. I mean, I'm an Omani guy who's married to an Australian wife, studying emergency medicine, doing a 60. Australian wife. The last thing I was gonna say, sorry, we really need to wrap this up, guys. This is getting ridiculous. I wanted to say this one point. I forgot now.
Tangent to tangent.
Yes, right. Sometimes some people
It's not an accident.
that we can get frustrated when we miss a deadline because we've been distracted from this to this and this to that, right? And sure, you should be frustrated, and you should, you know, absorb the consequence of that action in hopes that you will remember it for next time so that you don't do it again. But you will forget it. That's just the cycle of ADHD. But another perspective as well is that you got to remember that each of those, what seems like accidents, what seems like distraction, what seems like tangent to tangent, in a way it's the hands of al-Latif al-Khabir that's guiding you from one thing to another. And that's why that having your heart in the right spiritual state of that person with ADHD, that you can make sense of the sign. You are a lot more aware of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you see this disaster of coming late, you take it on a lot more gently, and you're a lot more gentle on yourself.
Like this
And,
is what was meant to happen.
You're meant to exactly, and you,
The qadr of Allah.
exactly, and you're there's less self-hating that can be destructive, and you're more likely, actually, because you're more compassionate to yourself, because you're now you're more likely to actually do the right steps next time, because self-criticism doesn't help.
Yeah, it's about that balance we spoke about earlier, alhamdulillah. I think like an important message I think that I've gathered from you is that the more we look into our religion, we realize that we are in many ways still a very big part of this community. Like the things that we ostracize ourselves for, there's still blessings from Allah, there's still planned by Allah, you know. And
that was my attitude whenever I felt the sense of rejection at any point in time in life, because of often I've done something wrong, probably, you know. And it's not like the community is always the world's a bad place or something. And I feel that sense of like, this is unfair. I would always have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to go back to. It's like, you know, Allah would accept me for where Allah would accept me for my craziness, you know. That I was like some of the companions were fighters and warriors, and you know.
Do you have the urge to be some battle warrior from like the Islamic golden age? I feel that in you. I resonate with that. I don't know if that's like a thing, but I feel like 100%
Islam is peace.
It's fine.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Bro, I think a lot of
perfectly.
people. Exactly. I think that this is where we belonged,
bro. 100%.
And we're supposed to sort of, you know, not live to the age where you have to now manage a house and. You're supposed to just go, you know,
do it. No, okay, I don't agree with you there.
At least you did something useful with your life. Like, you know, I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm not promoting violence.
Bro, internal jihad is always going to be harder than external jihad.
Exactly. That's why you should do external jihad and take the easier route.
Take the easier route, yeah. Okay, I think on that bombshell, we're going to have to
draw it to an end.
No way. No. We have to ask the last question.
I think we actually answered that.
No, I need to say the last question.
Oh, okay.
If you ever have someone with ADHD in your life, treat them with love, respect, and positive affirmations, because they will become whatever you perceive them to be or make them feel that they are. So if you, a school teacher, if you treat that kid who probably has ADHD like he's a class clown who is disrespectful, that's who he will become. But if you look at it with a lens of compassion and say, hey, look, maybe he's just restless, maybe he just needs to take a moment to be, and maybe he is actually a good kid. And if you believe that he's a good kid, he will believe that, or she will believe that, you know, or the mom or the dad who sees a kid running around, like if they don't receive. If you don't believe that they're good, they won't believe it themselves. You know. So if you have someone with ADHD in your life, positive affirmations all the way.
Alhamdulillah for this beautiful episode. Inshallah that we can all learn. Well, I've definitely learned, alhamdulillah, a lot from this, and inshallah can.
I've learned a lot from you guys as well.
Alhamdulillah, bro. Alhamdulillah, bring us close to Allah and make us better Muslims, bismillah.
And Jazakallah khair for coming on here, Muntasser. I know that even you spoke about it. It can be hard to speak about, you know, your experiences with this, and it might have been harder for you, you know, at a previous time in your life. So I think it's great that you can come on this podcast and share your experience and all of what has happened so far. So yeah, Jazakallah khair for that.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right.
And forgive us for any mistakes. And sallu ala nabi.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah khairan for listening to the podcast, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. To keep updated with the podcast and our other activities, follow us on Instagram @_6degrees and our website at www.6degrees.org.au.